Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Don't Know Running podcast, where we share our experiences that make running fun and sometimes not so fun. I'm Lewis, and I'm a self-admitted lazy ultra runner, and this is another solo episode, but this is a very special episode. A couple of reasons. Well, number one, we've just been crazy busy, Mitch and I. He has been on a little bit of a longer vacation. And I have been too, honestly. I've been taking a ton of vacation, which has had me kind of going here and there and not being able to line some things up to be able to record. However, this gives me the opportunity to just kind of share a little bit about the podcast. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Speaking of today, it is after 8 o'clock, and I'm recording this episode the day before it goes live. I got up this morning on the east side of the state. For those that don't know, that's Michigan. And I live on the west side of the state. So my intentions were that I would be able to get back here and record this special podcast. And it was much later when I got back than I thought I would get back. And that left me with this. I came home and I was talking to my wife and I said, it's late. Like, I don't even have the podcast ready. I knew what I wanted to do. So that was not a question. But it just takes time. And so I said, you know what? I'll do a Facebook post and I'm just going to say, hey, this podcast is going to come out a week late. But as I pondered that, I just didn't feel like doing that. I wanted to make sure that we got these episodes out. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to get this recorded. I'm going to get this out. I knew it was going to be a shorter episode as well. So this is a shorter episode. But anyway, the reason I woke up on the east side of the state, I got the opportunity today to be involved with, it's called Bill Glass Ministry. Well, it's Bill Glass Behind These Walls Ministry. And I'm telling you what, for those of you that know me, you know I do not hide my faith. But the Bill Glass Behind These Walls Ministry, I'm just going to read it right off their website, but it's to assist the church by equipping and igniting Christians to share their faith in Jesus Christ with the least of these. And a lot of their focus, you would think, is sharing the gospel with those behind. And that's not what this episode is going to be about, but it just gives some reference for what my day has been like. Their ministry is not to just like share the message of the gospel with those behind prison walls, but really their ministry is about enabling Christians to share the gospel, period. Like, that's it. Just share the message of Jesus Christ. And I was amazed when I heard one of the stats. I have to do some digging on this, but they said that 95% of Christians do not share their faith. They don't share the message of Jesus Christ. And I thought that was amazing. Sad, really. But at any rate, I got involved with this from a friend. He said, hey, you've got a motorcycle, bring it. We get to drive the motorcycles in behind the fences, and it opens up the door for conversation with guys that are serving a sentence. Some of these guys, one of the guys that my friend talked to today, he's got a life sentence. I mean, talk about a guy that needs hope. That is a guy that needs hope. So I had my first opportunity to go and do this and be a part of this, and I just couldn't pass it up. And so we went and did that this morning. It was a long day of hurry up, and you hurry up and you check in through security, and and by the way, the Gus Harrison facility in Adrian was amazing. The staff there, honestly, the residents, all the guys that are there, they call them residents or prisoners, amazing. I was blown away by everybody involved with this today. So at any rate, that's where I was this morning, getting an opportunity to share that with guys that, man, they made some mistakes in their life, and they're behind prison doors and fences and walls, and just get to give these guys not only hope, but show them that there are guys from people from outside of their space that care about them. I was blown away by that thought that here they are, they're stuck there. Yes, we've all made mistakes. And they've landed, there. And we get to go in and honestly just love on them. And so that's where I was at this morning. That was my morning. I didn't get any run in or anything like that. I got up at 5 this morning to be at the prison early and get checked in, get our bikes checked in. We drove in. It was just an amazing time. But we spent all day in the sun. So I feel like I got to work out. I drank a ton of water, some Gatorade. And at the end of the day, I felt like I got a long run in. So then I hopped in the truck, drove back here, got home late, told my wife, man, I don't know how I'm going to get this podcast in. But I felt like I really wanted to. And so let's shift the focus to running. And I discussed on, I believe it was last week's episode. Boy, I'm drawing a blank now. If that was had to be last week's episode, was the Mummy Marathon recap, essentially. And what I did not share in that episode was that I rolled my ankle about mile 10 pretty bad, pretty hard. It was one of those, you could tell it was a stinger where you had to hop for a little bit and it just wanted to like wiggle, and you knew you did a little bit of something, but I shook it out. And I thought, okay, it was just just like a little stinger, and it was, and it would be okay. Continued on and completed the marathon. And as I mentioned in that podcast, that was a very, very tough marathon. So I took a few days off like I normally would, and I noticed that ankle high up above the ankle had some soreness. And so I went out on a run on, I don't know what it was, maybe a Wednesday. The race was on Saturday. And the run went fine. It was great. But then Thursday, I don't remember. The days are all blending now. But at any rate, Wednesday or Thursday, I was at work and I was sitting in a chair and I got up and my ankle absolutely was killing me. And so at any rate, I did something to my ankle. So it did feel better. So it must have been Wednesday. So it did feel better Thursday and Friday. The soreness it was so tender even to the touch, that is subsided. And I'm hoping I'm going to take, I knew I was going to take today off pretty much. I'm going to take tomorrow off. Oh, I might know. I was planning on possibly running tomorrow afternoon, seeing how it feels. So the running has been put on hold essentially for me for the last week. I've had one run in, and Mitch, he's out. He's running all over the place. I'm sure he's getting his runs in. He did do a marathon. It was not Utah Hills that I said. It was Idaho Falls marathon that he did. I got a text shortly after last week's episode went live from his wife, Tammy, and said, we are not in Utah and we did not run the Utah Hills. We are in Idaho and ran the Idaho Falls Marathon. So that's where he's at. And he's actually, I think he got back today. So we will be back with our normal podcast starting next week. And I'm sure we will have tons of updates from Mitch and his marathons, his crewing that he did for Laura, and the trip in general. I understand he saw 4 bears. Spoiler alert. You're going to get to hear about, he saw 4 bears on his trip. He was super excited about that. Don't know why, but he was super excited to see some bears. So, like I said, this is a little bit more of a special podcast. Let's jump into, I just want to give an overview, kind of like the state of the podcast. Podcast is doing wonderful. We are super excited about where things have gone this year, some things we've been able to do with more of the consistency with the summer. One of the reasons I'm here right now, getting this recorded and putting it out, want to maintain that. I don't want to have weeks off. It's consistency is one of the key things, and we want to make sure that we're doing that, pumping out episodes for you guys, but also making sure that the content is there. That's something we are going to be continuing to work on. And one of the things we want to ask is content wise. We want to know what people want to hear. We partnered with PT Sports Pro and brought them in and started doing some of that kind of thing that gives the real technical know-how of the body and running and training and things like that, recovery, all the things that are tied to endurance sports. And I think that's been a really nice add. And so those are coming back, as we mentioned, the last couple of weeks in August. So that means tomorrow, I believe we're recording another episode. They'll be back in August, maybe not exactly on time, but they will be back in August. And other than that, things are as they are. I do want to mention one of the other pieces of the state of the podcast is the state of the November race that we kind of were teasing out there and talking about and really had made a commitment to do. But as things happen in life, things change. And as it turned out, that in doing some initial meetings and some initial checking and things like that, I just had to bow out. So the I Don't Know Running podcast itself will support the race in general, but that race will be put on by Mitch. Mitch is going to take that on and he's going to run with that. That's his puppy. He's going to take it over. And I will just be a supporting person from the sidelines. I just can't put that on my plate right now. I've got a lot of things going and juggling that I just can't possibly take on putting together an event like that. Talk to any RD and ask them just how simple it is to just throw a race together. It's not. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And with that, because it does take so much time, I'm 99% sure Mitch has kicked this to next year. We just don't have the time to put together the event that we wanted to put together this year by November, the day after Thanksgiving. So super sorry about that if that disrupts any plans. But we do want to, well, I shouldn't say we, Mitch really does want to do that. And that's something he's going to take over and just run with. Other than that, that's pretty much the state of the podcast. I think everybody's kept up with us. The other thing I want to shift to, and something that we do talk about at the end of all the podcasts, and I wanted to really spend just a little bit of time, not a ton of time, but just a little bit of time on this, is our Patreon support. Patreon page. But if you we've got a link in every single post that we do. You can go to YouTube, you can go to Facebook, you can go to Spotify, our website, I Don't Know Running podcast. You can find the link to our Patreon. And I just wanted to specifically shout out our Patreon members and supporters. And this is something we do want to grow. It's something, that is an avenue for us to be able to not only find general supporters, but people that want to help move the show forward financially. And we do have that. And so I just wanted to give a call out or shout out specifically to our Patreon supporters. And this is something we'll be doing more of in the future, as well as content / posts and things like that are specific to our Patreons. And so in no order whatsoever, this is purely from bottom up and from general supporter to financial supporter. So our general supporters, and I apologize for any name mispronunciation. But Ron Knoll, thank you so much. He is a general supporter. Really appreciate that. That means a lot. Ron has been on the show. He's RD'd tons of races, been listed as RD of the year multiple times by many or by multiple times in this area. And thank you, Ron. Really appreciate you listening and supporting the show in any way, shape, or form. PT Sports Pro, Terrence, thank you so much for, again, general supporter, being a part of the Patreon supporter team. And then myself, I am a Patreon general supporter. That was from the early days of just getting things set up. And then we have Mindy Calgi. Thank you so much. You are the bomb. Minnie's such a great friend and a friend personally and of the show. We have talked about Minnie several times on the podcast, and she also has been on the show before. And then Gwen Lee Guater. I honestly, I'm not sure. I don't think that I've met Gwen. Gwen, if you have talked to me, probably knows Mitch. I apologize if you talked to me. I don't recognize the last name. I do know some Gwen, so maybe there's a thing there where I do know who this is. But Gwen, thanks so much. She is also a general supporter, and we really appreciate joining the team there. The following are some people that wanted to go the next step and support the show financially. I thank you guys so much. Mark Vanderkooy, who we have had on the show as well a couple of times. Mark was a guy that we talked about his training leading into Boston Marathon and qualifying for Boston Marathon, and then post his Boston Marathon race experience. So thank you, Mark, for supporting the show in a financial way that helps move us forward. And then Chris Denham, Chris Levi's, as we've joked on the podcast, I always messed up his last name in talking to Mitch or talking on the podcast. But it's Denham. I do know it's Chris Denham. He reached out and said it's just like the jeans denim, how you would say denim. So Chris was our first podcast supporter. He soon as that was available, he signed on and became a financial supporter. Thank you so much, Chris. And he would have, I think he's probably got a mug by now. Chris, you could comment on this post wherever, either on YouTube, Facebook, or wherever. If you have that mug, I would love to see it. That's one thing I did not do correctly when we set up the Patreon merch. I was supposed to be able to get, I believe, a couple of those things, and I did not. So I would love to see that mug, Chris, if you could share that. Then for those of you that don't know, our mug is the Not So Bad Coffee mug. I think I can actually take that as a media. I probably could, but I don't know how to get there. It's something I can use when I'm live, but I don't know. I might be able to throw it up there to show you, or Chris will just show us. So, but he should have that. I think at this stage, he may or may not have that. I think it was the third thing that he should have been sent. But anyway, Chris, thank you so much. And then Carrie, and here's another last name that I got wrong. I was saying in my head this correctly in my head to me all along until I talked to a friend of both of ours, Matt, and I realized I was totally saying it wrong. So Carrie, I'm not even sure because now I say it in my head wrong. I say Samayak. I'm not even sure now, but Matt corrected me and he told me the correct pronunciation, and I don't remember now. But Carrie, thank you so much. He is the ultra supporter, so he has he reached out soon after we launched Patreon as well, and he just thought he really liked what the show is doing and putting out content that was authentic and real for all runners, in the sense of 90+% of us we are the bulk of the running community in races, and the bulk of the running community in general, period. Because it's those top 10% or even 5%. They're not listening to Mitch and I talk, but the rest, we all have something to gain and learn. And that's something Mitch and I talk about a ton, is we go out and every single time we learn something new, and we love to share that and we love to talk about that. And that's what this podcast has been about since its inception. Mitch and I showing up on a Friday for dinner with our wives, sometimes more, including family and friends. And him and I would be sitting across the table talking about running. And that's just where we would always go. And we really enjoyed it and wanted to be able to share it, because a lot of the stuff we would be bouncing off from each other, we realized like, oh yeah, you do this, and oh, this worked for you and it didn't work for you. Well, and we just really enjoyed it. We thought people would enjoy it, and it seems like people have. So yeah, that's where the podcast is at. And one of the things I can ask is that everybody hearing this podcast, go to our Patreon, click the link, join our team. Once again, you can do it for free, or you can choose to support the show in a financial way as well. Doesn't matter. Either way, we appreciate it all. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, like I said, on the Patreon side of things, we will be adding some content, some things for for both general, for financial supporters. So be looking for that as that continues to grow and some time frees up on our side of things to be able to do that. But it is something we want to do. And I thank you guys so much that have already jumped in and are joining the team in any way, shape, or form. It is something we look at and appreciate. So I don't say that lightly. It's definitely something we want to continue to blossom and grow and get involved with. So yeah, thank you guys. And that is, let me make sure I check my notes here. I even wrote down notes. That's it. Yeah. Thank you guys so much, as always, for listening and sharing the podcast. Be sure to share this with somebody that might find some of this content interesting. Probably helps if they're a runner or endurance athlete of some kind. But it doesn't have to be. I have found that's not everybody that listens to the podcast. But that is the majority. But yeah, check us out on Facebook, check us out on YouTube, check us out on Spotify, all your favorite listening platforms. But yeah, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the I Don't Know Running podcast. Be sure to tune in next time as we share more about what we just don't know. Until next time, happy running.